told these stories. Oh my God. So I remember, like, I was in the business before Dustin ever was in the business, right? I love it when people tell me that I got my career on the back of my ex-husband. No, he wasn't even in the business when I was in the business. So, no disrespect to him, but just speaking facts. Um, anyway, we had a pay-per-view out in Phoenix, and I can't tell you the previous relationship to this right now. One day ask me about this and I'll give you the scoop. How's that?
Sure.
Okay.
Down the
But
road.
but there was a relationship that still to this day is deep in my heart. And anyway, um
A
so
WCW guy, could you say that? Or is it someone from another company?
many companies,
Okay.
but just still deep in my heart, love, 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 and respect. Okay. Anyway, one day we'll talk about it. Um, so anyway, we had a pay-per-view out in Phoenix, WCW pay-per-view. And I remember I was on, it was a Phoenix Hilton, and they had this beautiful like mountain like sunset behind the hotel. And Janie Engel, Dusty, myself, and I forget who else was sitting there on the patio with this beautiful backdrop, but we were sitting there having drinks at the outdoor like bar. And um it was getting close to sunset, and all of a sudden Dustin pulled up in a cab, and literally, like, he got out of the cab and it was like like all this fairy dust fell down, and I was like, what the hell? Because I have looked at this kid like a jackass because he pulled into town not too long ago, and he was like a hot mess. And why am I even thinking anything about this kid? Right. And so anyway, he comes to the patio, has a drink. We all go and have dinner. We're in like this big, like, um, uh, van that's like a million seater. Like, it's like a hokey van, right? And we go to dinner, and then when we come back to the hotel, um, Dustin said to me, he's like, all right, I'm gonna go and hang with the boys. And I'm like, dude, you're not going anywhere, you're gonna hang with me. And so he hung with me at the hotel. Don't ask me why I spoke to him like that. Like, what the hell? Um, anyway, it was the first time I ever had tequila in my entire life. The last time I had tequila in my entire life. Um, I remember him getting me up to my room because I was like not well. That one shot of tequila was like, woo. And he, God bless him, he didn't do anything. He literally tucked me into bed and went to his room. The next morning, I could not find my toothbrush and toothpaste. I called him. I'm like, dude, do you have toothbrush and toothpaste? He brought it to me, and we flew home from Phoenix, and he sent up this letter, this little tiny note that said, will you go out on a date with me? And I sent back, yes, but you have to call me. Like, I don't know why I was being such a bitch, but like, what? His letter wasn't good enough to invite me for, sorry, for like a lunch? No, I said to him, like, you have to call me. So the next day he calls me, and we went out to lunch, and then he said, would you go out to dinner with me tonight? And I said, yes. We went to dinner the next day, lunch, dinner, and then he just moved into my apartment. Yeah, so we were just never apart after that. So yeah, that's how that happened.
When you were working with him against the Ultimate Warrior, how was the Ultimate Warrior in those days?
Kind of pissy. I love Dana. I love her girls, and I know she has gone through a lot, just experiencing everything she did. But yeah, he was not real thrilled with what we were doing. Dana said to me that I think she was on one of my podcasts, and she said, no, like he loved you and whatever. But I just got the connotation that he was not real thrilled with what he was doing with us. I think that the whole Goldust thing was so new, and the whole gay innuendo was so new. He was just not certain of that.
I see. What did you think of the whole Goldust and Marlena situation? Because it was much different than Alexandra York.
Yeah, yeah. So Vince came up with the whole Goldust thing, right? I had nothing to do with that, and Vince called, and interestingly enough, Devin, I just found a briefcase of mine. If I go down this rabbit hole and forget where I started, keep me on the path that you just asked me, please. Um, so at one of my mom's homes, I just found one of my briefcases, and I found all these letters and notes and this and that. And there were some from Linda and Vince, on letterhead, on stationery. And um, there was one from Jim Ross telling Dustin how great he was going to be as Goldust. And what's the most heartwarming is I found letters from Pops um, to Dustin, and this is during the time that he and Dustin weren't speaking, um, like apologizing to Dustin, Grandma apologizing to Dustin. Um, oh gosh, yeah, I remember when it all happened because Dustin had been fired from WCW literally for listening to his agent, right? Mike Graham telling him to, juice to freaking Blade
Yeah.
and
In that
gig.
truck match, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you especially because they were not in the studio, they were way out in the freaking middle of nowhere. And you knew to do whatever your agent told you to do. Like that's what you did. And so both guys did the same thing, and they fired both guys. And I remember it just being so devastating to us because we had a baby. And God, this is so sad to tell you. I remember going to Kroger in Atlanta and writing a check for our food and knowing we did not have money to cover it, and calling my mom saying, can you please help us? Like that's how bad it was, right? And then it was not too long after that that Vince gave him this idea. And to Dustin's credit, like he went from being a tobacco chewing Texan, right? Ass kicking Texan, to being this dude that is totally androgynous and totally like piss you off, make you mad, make you glad, like just something no one had ever seen before. Adrian Adonis back in the day, but Dustin took it farther, right? I was laying in our tanning bed at home, and all of a sudden it hit me. Dakota's like a year and a half. I've been like not doing wrestling for like almost 2 years. And it was like all of a sudden it hit me. I was like, what does the WWE not have? Actually, WWF at the time. Sorry. What do they not have? And at the time they had Sherry, Scary Sherry, and Sunny. And so you know how they were very different human beings in terms of their characters, right? So I was like, there's no old school Hollywood, and Dustin's supposed to be this like perfect actor and whatever, like he quotes all these movies and whatever. So all of a sudden it just hit me in the tanning bed. I was like, oh my God, like they need this female in the company, like that's what they need. And so I called Dustin while I was in the tanning bed, and I told him all like my entire idea, and he's like, I love it. And I said, okay, call Vince and just like tell him. And he's like, I'm not calling Vince, you call Vince. And at the time, Dustin was very scared of authority. And I hope that he's at the point in his life now that he can admit that back in the day. But he was like, no, you call Vince. I'm not calling Vince. And so I did, I called the office, and I remember getting a phone call back from Pat Patterson, and Pat gave me the obligatory, oh, that's great. That's a great idea. Thank you so much, but we're not interested. But thanks anyway. So I literally cast it aside, didn't think another thing of it, focused on being a mommy. And I was at my grandparents' house, and it was right at Christmas time. And Dustin said, he called, and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm at Gran and Granny's. And he said, well, pack your bags. They want to do your idea. And I was like, you're kidding. So like everything about Marlena was me. I had the idea to go to the ring with either a cigar or a glass of wine. And at the time, because cigars were allowed, at least in, not that people could walk in and smoke cigars in the seats, but for us, we could walk out, and whatever we used for our characters was allowed. And we decided to go with the cigars. And yeah, because back in the day, I absolutely love bubble baths and cigars. So it was, to me, it was like, let me do this extension of myself with this character. And the reason I came up with and decided on Marlena was because of Marlena Dietrich, who was way back in the day in Hollywood. And she was one of the first women that wore pants and wore pantsuits and smoked cigars. And I was like, dude, you are all that in me. I love you. I cherish you. Yeah, let's go with Marlena. Anyway, so yeah, and that's how Marlena was created.
Now, I've heard you already tell the story about Dustin on the plane ride from hell, but the story I wanted to know about the plane ride from hell is, were you paying attention to the Brock Lesnar, Mr. Perfect altercation that happened on there?
Yes and no. Yes and no. It was kind of like everyone that was, and understand this was a chartered flight. So there was really no first class, there, we were all one, right? But I was sitting in first class, and as was Vince, as was, a lot of the office. And when a lot of this stuff went down, Paul Heyman, one of the best things he ever did for me, he looked at, well, this is when Dustin was singing that damn David Allan Coe song to me, which he had sang to me like before we married, during our marriage, whatever.
Yeah.
And now he's married to another girl, which I loved. I thought she was wonderful. She was a great stepmom to Dakota. And this jerk is singing me this damn song. And I remember like looking back, because I knew where it was coming from. All the trouble was in the back of the plane, right? And when I glanced back, I caught Paul's eye, and he was like, "Kayfabe, come, like K fucking fabe." And so I just laid my head against the window again and went back to sleep. And yeah. So
I'm glad you made it through that without too much
crazy,
craziness.
crazy.
So were you, I guess that means you were apart from Dustin by the time he went back to WCW.
Yes. And it pisses me off. Dustin had gone through rehab several times, and like at my behest, because I was like, choose drugs or your family, right? And I remember when he went to rehab, it's like he's with Terrell, he's married to now. They were dating, and I remember he came to my house, and he was great evening. Um, he for the first time ever, he told me like what he had been taking and drinking and doing. And I was just shocked because I was this stupid wife that didn't realize what all he was doing. So I remember, and I'm down a rabbit hole already. So bring me back in a minute to what the question you asked. Anyway, I remember, telling Dakota like what he was doing, that he was going to rehab. And she's like, no, I don't want to see him. He's just going to get out and do the same thing. And he didn't. And I said to her, I'm like, Pumpkin, if you do not go and see your father before he goes into rehab, you will never forgive yourself if something bad happens to him. Like, give him all your support and everything. Like, don't do this, right? Anyway, she talked to him. She was there. She was present, and never gone back. He's never gone back. And I have to say about him in the future, but I'm proud of him that he's remained healthy, and like he's the healthiest he's been. And his new addiction, I've said this for many years now, is the gym. Like, that's his addiction, is the gym. And what a great addiction to have, right?
I hate to ask you this, but there's a ton of fans on here that want to see your Shawn Michaels impression. You don't have to, but I will be letting them down if I don't bring it up.
Yeah, I'm surprised that so many people appreciated that and laugh at it. It's I've always been able to wiggle my ears. I can do one eyebrow or the other, no problem. My chest, I've always been able to move different stuff. It's easy to cross one eye and turn the other one, and do things like that for me. But the thing is about that interview that's so popular is that one, I feel like I was a dick for doing that, because what makes it funny is Shawn Michaels is a king, and for someone to openly talk about him and try and bring him down, but that has to happen in society. That's why, you can't be up there if you don't expect that. But the universe got me back. Watch the movie Headstrong on Amazon if you don't know, but I had double vision from a shot in the head. It wasn't even a hard shot. It was the lamest shot, and that's what forced me to abandon the agenda of a documentary and change it to being about concussions and just overall the future of my head wellness. But I've had many concussions, and when I think about Shawn Michaels having an eye stuck in, that must suck so bad. Like, I think I would have like the worst headaches. I can't imagine. And so I had to go to vision therapy for a long time. And my deal was that I had double vision. I could see out of either eye fine. When I looked out of them both, I would see double vision. And it was something that I had to deal with. And it made me realize, that to me, that Shawn Michaels video wasn't quite as funny as it might have been before. Not to mention, if it does hurt, the Heartbreak Kids feelings, then, that I apologize. I saw him one time at the Cauliflower Alley Club, and this might have been before I did that. I don't even know. I don't think, whatever. But I saw he was getting an award at Cauliflower Alley Club, and I've never hung out with them or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, we're not in the same place at the same time too much. But when I was him, I said, "Hey, dude, I hope you didn't see me being a dick on the internet that caused you any grief." Or I can't remember how I worded it, but it was like, "Well, I don't take anything in the business seriously." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." But at the same time, those are my feelings on it that are now all of our feelings to share.
And you mentioned the Ultimate Warrior. Did you get along okay with him backstage?
I love Jimmy. A lot of guys didn't like Jim. I love Jim. Jim was Jim. He wasn't going out to hurt anybody or do anything bad towards anybody. He was, he came into a position where he was able to be a top dog and make a lot of money. And a lot of guys were just jealous. I mean, He was a gimmick. Jimmy didn't have to be a great wrestler. He was a gimmick. He would come to the ring 100 miles an hour, get in that ring, shake those ropes like a madman, come out just like boom, 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 done, shake those ropes and gone. Run 100 miles an hour out. You know, I mean, that was Jim.
What's an example you could tell us about the side of him that doesn't get told very often, because we always hear the negative stuff?
Well, for me, it was one time we were overseas in Europe. I remember, I think it was 1993. We had to go to Europe with Hercules. I mean, some really good names, a lot of big names, and every show was sold out. I mean, you're talking these were places, 15,000 people sold out every single night. We had like 10 days over there, and the promoters that took us over there trying to screw us on the money, trying to hold us up. You know, we want our money. Yeah. So finally, I got pissed off, and I took one of them, I put him against the wall. I was ready to choke the guy out. And I said, you know what? I said, I know you're hiding the money somewhere. So you know what? I don't want you. We don't want to work with you anymore. I said, well, I'm going to talk to the promoter, the German promoters over here, because they had such a great setup. I mean, it was like a WWF setup with the sounds. I mean, it was incredible. So I wanted to talk to them. I said, listen, guys. I said, you know, this is what, you know, Jimmy and me want to do and that stuff. You know, this is what you guys got to pay us. Take care of the rest of the money for it. Make sure everybody gets paid. You know, you can keep all the merchandise sales. You can keep all the gate. You can keep all that stuff. It's all yours. We just want this amount of money, you know, but we need to have it. Next day we came, Jim and me, and Jimmy stood up for it. Jimmy stood up for all the guys. And he's the only one that could on that tour. I mean, if he didn't wrestle, that tour was done. It was done. And he stood up for everybody. And Jimmy were walking around with $200,000 of cash in a briefcase. And before we go, we put in a special safety box all the time. We wouldn't give the guys ahead of time because we were afraid we'd give some of the guys ahead of time. They would just take off. Right. They would come to the States. You know how that goes. And the last day, man, we made sure everybody got paid. Every single penny they made, they earned, they got. Jimmy was a stand-up guy. He would stand up for the boys.
Did you ever train with him?
Never got to train with Jimmy. I trained in the gym with Jimmy many times. Not so much in WWE, but on that tour, Jimmy and me went and trained every single day. And you know, Jimmy's an intense workout person. He's intense.
What did you think about the unusual way that he died? Like, he just made amends with WWE, appeared for them a couple of times, then literally passed away the night of his last appearance.
You know, I got a theory on that, and it's my feeling. Jimmy was 54 years old. He hadn't been in the limelight in a long time. He stayed low for a long time living in New Mexico. When you get used to that kind of lifestyle, your heart rate, everything else is, you're very relaxed. Everything else, you know, you don't get that adrenaline anymore. Like in wrestling and sports, football, and you get that big adrenaline. You don't have that anymore, so you don't have all that stress on your heart. I think when he got honored with that Hall of Fame, he went to the Hall of Fame, and I just feel with the Hall of Fame and then being on national TV again, I feel that adrenaline rush was so much that when he flew home on that plane, his heart couldn't come down from it. You know, you just have, when you haven't been around for a long time, it'd be just like me, you know, someone at WCW, we want you to come out and do a show in front of a, you know, how many, you know, a huge crowd. It's like your heart's going to go 100 miles an hour. You know, you haven't done it in a long time. And I just have a feeling that Jimmy's heart just could not come down. That adrenaline was so bad, his heart couldn't stop it. It gave out.
Yeah, I mean, Joe and I go way back to the days I recruited him out of Irondale High School in New Brighton, Minnesota, to play college football with me, and we had incredible memories. Thinking back on those days of suiting up and playing ball together, and then of course the condensed version of the story. You know, then fast forward a few years and. Then he recruited me. He called me and recruited me out of football into pro wrestling, and not something I was really looking for on my radar, but lo and behold, it worked out the way it did. And I mean, just so many memories come flooding back in. It is a bit of a surprise for me, you know, as I got the information. My phone's been blowing up all day, text messages, phone calls, etc. And any time, I mean, unless you really know somebody's struggling with health issues or something like that, something like this comes as a surprise to people, certainly, and catches people off guard. And but some of my favorite memories, riding up and down the road together with him, pre wrestling back in those college days, hanging out hanging out in the backyard in a swimming pool with a whole group of us muscleheads, making his dad mad, who he'd come home from slaving at work all day and watch 20 muscleheads floating around his pool eating all his food, um, back in our starving college days. And so that's just one of, gosh, so many memories. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but so many memories that just come flooding back. And ironically, I guess 2 weeks ago, I got a text message from his wife and said, "Hey, would you mind, his big 60 is coming up, his 60th birthday. Would you mind putting together a little video birthday wish to him?" And absolutely. And so I did that just 2 weeks ago, I believe it was. And to surprise him for his birthday. And then here we are, fast forward a couple weeks later, and he's passed and no longer with us. And I want to say this too, since we opened up with Road Warrior Animal, his passing, really want to honor him tonight by saying some very memorable matches early on. Certainly were the Russian chain matches and or the tag team matches that Ivan and I had against those guys that many times would bring the house down in a sense. In other words, the fans just really loved it.
Is there any Road Warrior match that you've had in your career that stands out to you as like a very special match, either teaming with them or going up against them?
Well, I think, I mean, there's so many memories, but with one we already addressed, that was the very first ever War Games that we were all involved in, was incredibly memorable.
Well, it was every night before Mariah went to bed, we'd call her and we'd say, "How's your day?" And it was always really good conversation. Mariah always wanted to talk to her mom before she went to bed. And I just remember that it just seemed like it was getting harder and harder to get in touch with her. And then there was days that she didn't even answer her phone. It would just go to voicemail. And I was thinking, why? Where's my wife? I know the wrestling matches are over. They got to be either driving to the next town or in a hotel room. And there's no phone call back. There was nothing. So I remember leaving a very nasty message, like, "I can't believe you don't call us back. This is rude." Well, I don't remember what I said, but anyways, I started feeling bad for saying that, and I go, "You know what? And I knew her access code to her phone like she knew mine. We're a married couple, So I called back the phone and I go, "I'm going to delete that message. I don't want her to hear that. She's probably got enough stress on the road." I dialed the number and it says, "You have 2 unheard messages." I thought, okay, so I got to listen to the first one to get to mine, And it's this man's voice apologizing for the night before. And, and I was like, what the heck? And it was pretty graphic, and I was very taken back. And then I was realizing that she's seeing somebody else, It was devastating. I mean, I thought we'd be married forever, And I just remember, and anyone that's gone through a breakup or lost a loved one, you know the feeling. It's like just your heart. You can't sleep. You can't eat. You're just miserable. And I didn't say anything. And then I deleted my message. And then I picked her up at the airport. And I said, "I want to know who this is." And she goes, "What are you talking about?" So she first denied it. And then she just said that she's going to be moving out and she wants a divorce. And it's like my world ended there, man. The most devastating, hurtful, didn't know what I was going to do. Because now, you're obviously split everything up and you go your own way and life changes. And I got back into drugs. I got back into living a horrible life, horrible financial decisions. The housing market tanked. Everything that could go wrong went wrong in my life, to the point where I just didn't even want to be here anymore. And then, just making an amazing comeback in life. And that's part of the story I've shared at schools and churches and corporations now, was that, no matter how bad it is, no matter what you're going through, and there's a plan, a purpose for your life. And we can all come back from adversity.
Did you ever have a talk with Brock or anything since that happened? Like, get to see him in person and any type of apology or anything from him?
No, and I don't expect a Christmas card or anything.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.